All right. So, Rob, if you want to pull up Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi when they're being sworn, when they're going through their hearings, maybe let's look at what happened here. Some of these things, guys, it's so entertaining watching this. Rob, I'll let you pick whichever ones you want to pick. Maybe pick the one where Elizabeth Warren is saying, if you're a general, you know, and if you're going through this, go for it. Watch this exchange here, folks.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one. Let us just be clear. In charge of the generals.
Dude, did you see the guy next to her?
Hilarious.
Angus King?
Hilarious.
You're talking about the older white guy? Oh, Angus King.
He almost had a heart attack.
Rob,
Senator
what else do you have with, is this Bondi?
Yes.
Okay, let's see this, because this is entertaining. Go for it.
Has called for it publicly. You are aware of that, aren't you?
No one has asked me to investigate.
But the president has
We're
called,
also worried about Liz Cheney,
the
Senator.
president has
You know
called
what we
for
should
this.
be worried about?
Ms. Bondi,
the
please
crime rate
answer
in
my
California
questions.
right now
You
is
are aware,
through the roof.
Ms. Bondi,
Your robberies are 87% higher than the national
my question
average.
is this.
That's what I
My
want to
question
be
is
focused
this.
on, Senator.
Do you have the
if
power
I'm
to say
confirmed as
no to the
Attorney
president?
General.
And what you're suggesting today by your non-answer is
She's
you don't
59
have
years
the
old.
independence to say no to the
60.
president. So let me ask you a different
She's
question.
59?
It also
Yeah.
requires
59.
you,
Wow.
if you're going to be a good attorney
seems
general, to be
very
able to tell
qualified.
hard truths to the president. So my questions now are, can you tell hard truths to the president? So let me start with an easy truth that you could speak to the president. Can you tell us, can you tell him that Donald Trump lost the 2020
Here he
election?
goes.
Can you say that?
What
Do you have
is
the
this?
independence to say that? Do you have the gravitas, the stature, the
Gravitas.
intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election? Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I
No,
won't
I'm just
do it.
asking you a simple
I
question.
won't play
If you can
politics
speak truth
with any
to
ongoing
power. So let me ask you
investigation,
another.
like you did
let me-
leaking your
let me ask
colleague
you,
Devin Nunes's
if-
memo.
Yeah,
if-
bingo.
review
Look-
hundreds of
Look at the
cases
size
on
of the
day
ring
one.
on her.
I will
hand.
look at every file I am
Of
asked
course you
to
won't.
look
So
at.
will you advise the
Hey,
president?
can I
will
answer
you-
the question?
Well, my question
I would
is-
have plenty of staff. You said, of course you want.
You'll be able to review
Listen,
hundreds
I'm not
of
going to
cases on the first
mislead
day?
this body nor you.
All right, let me ask another question. You don't want to answer that. Let me ask
You
another
were
question.
censured by
It will
Congress,
also-
Senator, for
it will
comments
also-
just like this that
it
are
will
so
also- It will also be important.
Oh,
that was
This
that was-
episode
he's-
of this
the-
episode of Jerry Springer was one of my
No, but
favorites.
he's
Go on.
absolutely, he's one of the worst. He's in the top 5 of the worst, and he knows what's coming too. He knows.
Is there another one, Rob? Is there anything else with Pete you have or Pam?
I have a bunch of so I have Pete Hegseth defending his 7-year-old daughter to Tim Kaine. Pete Hegseth saying that he was the victim of a coordinated smear campaign. I have Pete Hegseth with Kirsten Gillibrand.
Kirsten Gillibrand.
Yeah. And then I also have Pete Hegseth defending women in the military. I think the Gillibrand.
Oh, you know which one is
defending-
good? So play the one about women in the military where, you know, the comments he made in the past before, women
Meritocracy.
shouldn't be in front lines. Yeah, this is the one.
And then there's a great clip to follow up where he explains his support of
Okay,
women.
go for it. Play this clip.
You said in your statement you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal. I mean, you're
She seems
basically
very
saying
pleasant.
women
Oh,
after
yeah.
they
Why are they
have children
yelling?
can't ever serve in the
LGBTQ
military to
supporter.
combat
Is she?
role.
Yeah.
It's a silly thing to say. It's a silly thing to say. Beneath the position that you are aspiring to.
By the way, whoever was Pete's hairstylist, good. Seriously,
Congrats,
that guy's
they
gotta
did
get
great.
You got to get a shout out.
Yeah,
Pete's
big
an
time.
absolute stud.
He is,
And
he
they're
is.
just trying to come up and basically
Go for it.
lambast him and bring him down.
As Secretary of Defense, will you support women continuing to have the opportunity to serve in combat roles?
She's a Republican who served.
Senator, first of all, thank you for your service, as
Exactly.
we discussed extensively as well.
It's my privilege.
And my answer is yes, exactly the way that you caveated it. Yes, women will have access to ground combat roles, given the standards remain high, and we'll have a review to ensure the standards have not been eroded in any one of these cases. That'll be part of one of the first things we do at the Pentagon is reviewing that in a gender-neutral way, the standards, ensuring readiness and meritocracy is front and center. But absolutely, it would be the privilege of a lifetime if confirmed, to be the Secretary of Defense for all men and women in uniform.
So let me ask this question. Vinny, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
So do you think it's a good idea to have women on the front lines? You're a former vet. You're Air Force. You know, you were Airman of the Year out of all the soldiers in Air Force the year you got it. Do you think women should be on the front line?
Okay, and since we haven't been in actual fighting war, like we haven't invaded, we haven't done anything in how many, 20 years? I think there's
Afghanistan.
I mean, come on. I'm talking about combat, full combat. I'm talking about Iraq and invading. That was like when we were watching the tanks and the Hummers going in. I'm not a fan. Listen, I'm a fan of women joining, and if they could play key roles in like comms or like they could assist in the combat. But ground troops running in on the ground, boots on the ground, and war, I'm not a fan.
Why not?
Because what if they do have to get to a situation where it is hand-to-hand combat with another man? What are the odds, you think, the percentage of that guy winning that hand-to-hand combat? Because at the end of the day, he just nailed it. There's standards, Pat. You have to pass on all different standards. Every soldier has to have the same qualifications. Because let's be honest, if we're talking about all war breaks out and it's her against another guy one-on-one, he's going to win 95% of the time.
Look,
I'm just being honest. So no, I'm not for boots on the ground fighting, but any other supporting roles, you know what I mean? Like drones or on that stuff. If she's lethal in that sense, that's fine. But on the ground, I'm not a fan of it.
It's pretty simple to me. Men are not women, women are not men. So therefore, we are not equal. We are equal under the eyes of the law. But we are not equal in stature. We are not equal in size. We are not equal in strength. We are not equal in speed. If we were, go let the women of the WNBA play with the NBA guys. All right? Go let men and women compete the UFC. Let me know when Ronda Rousey shows up against Conor McGregor how she does. Good luck, ladies. So in the military, sure, women can be in the military, but not in the roles fighting against men. You know, I had dinner.
You've never seen G.I. Jane with Demi Moore.
She's...
You've never seen it.
I've had personal, I've had personal interactions with Demi Moore.
Now,
she is gorgeous.
Hello.
I would whoop
Whoopies
in a different capacity.
Listen, maybe one of the best movies to highlight Demi Moore's greatness and her God-given gifts was the movie called Indecent Proposal.
Of course, that too.
I love what is the guy's name? Robert
Redford.
Freaking movie.
Forget
right?
about
who else? What was the other
Woody
guy?
Harrison.
That was Woody Harrelson. I'll give you $1 million.
That's when Sade took off because that's Sade's.
That was the movie?
That's Sade's song is in the movie.
Wow,
yeah, Indecent
right.
Proposal.
So
Ordinary Love. Ordinary Love
is no.
The way she looked in that movie,
ordinary
she invades
love.
my bedroom, I surrender.
Tom, you and your horizontal mambo number 5. It's always
Clip it.
unbelievable. But I mean, she was gorgeous right here. Ain't nobody intimidated by Demi Moore other than maybe if you're scared to get a girl's number. But you know, I had dinner with a girl who serves in the IDF. Do you know in Israel that every single civilian has to serve 2 years in the military? I think for men it's 2, for women it's 1. And I said to the girl, I said, well, why is it just 1? And for what she goes, well, she's telling me, well, we are different than the men. The men are the fighters. I was in the Air Force. I didn't fly the plane. I sat in the back. I did logistics. She's telling me all this stuff.
She's in Israel.
She sounds like she was in the movie Ratatouille.
Yeah, that too. My French accent is. Maybe she was a little French.
So to make some hors d'oeuvres.
We are.
But
she was
the point
mouse.
is this: she's saying that men and women are not the same. That she doesn't want to be in combat. None of the women that she knows wants to be in combat. They have different roles.
Yeah.
So why is that different here in America?
I love the fact that he's having a conversation, and I love the fact that he didn't back down and get scared. He says, "If you meet the standards."
Yep.
Great, like what you said. Great.
100%.
But Tom, I got a question for you. And specifically, I'm coming to you with this one here. I want you to watch this clip by Senator Gary Peters, Democrat, Michigan. I don't know who he is, but by the way, I actually think it's a very good question he's asking.
Okay.
Because for me, I'm trying to hear questions. Like, you know how it's kind of like, oh, there's nothing on my side that the guy's going to be. When you're choosing a candidate, you ought to be wanting them to be asking anybody tough questions,
100%.
right? No matter who it is.
Yep.
This is a very fair question to ask, Rob, if you can play this clip. And on Tom, I got a question for you. Go for it.
That in a large organization. And I'm sorry, but I don't see that in your background. There are a lot of other things you can do very well. You're a capable person, but you have not convinced me that you're able to take on this tremendous responsibility with a complex organization and having little or no significant management experience.
Senator, I'm grateful to be hired by one of the most successful CEOs in American history, should I be confirmed.
Is that Roger Ailes?
What happened? No, Rob, this isn't a clip.
No, he's talking about the CEOs.
No, you can pause it right there. This isn't a clip. But the guy asks a question, and he says, Pete, you have not represented more than 100 employees max in your career. And 100 employees, it's not employees, I think it's troops in the military that he had. So you don't have. How do you go from 100, right? And Rob, if you want to listen to it yourself first and then see if this is the one, how do you go from 100 to all of a sudden now leading something like this that's this massive? So here's the question. Do you think which of the two matters most? A Trump who's never been in the military, he's never served in the military, but he's the commander-in-chief. That phrase, commander-in-chief, is a military phrase.
Yes.
President, maybe it's a political phrase, but commander-in-chief is a military phrase. What's more important to you? A person who's never served to be the commander-in-chief. This person's never served, but they've ran a big organization, very successful in business, very successful in, entertainment, and now they're going to come and run the country, which he's done now twice. Or somebody who has served, but no bigger than 100, to now get the responsibility of nearly $1 trillion budget and hundreds of thousands of people that he has to manage. Which one of those two are you more comfortable with, and which one of them are you not comfortable? Maybe you're comfortable with both of them.
So I am very comfortable with Trump as commander-in-chief because he demonstrates that he's very strategic, he's very decisive. And strategic and decisive, which Jimmy Carter wasn't. And that hurt Jimmy Carter because he was not strategic. He was not decisive, even though he was a decorated, very smart submarine commander, nuclear submarine program. So he was in a very complex, but Trump is decisive. He's a negotiator. He's run a large organization. And isn't it interesting understanding the pitfalls of the large organization? He creates DOJ and puts guys in charge of it to go attack the bad part of large organizations. So I am very comfortable in Trump and his role on the two angles. I'm very comfortable about his strategic side. I think things are happening around the world, like yesterday, the ceasefire, because people fear his decisive and strategic side. And he's run a large organization. I think Pete understands the outcome of the Department of Defense as being part of it. But I think it is a fair question. Pete, I think, is going to have to rely on other cabinet members, Secretary of Commerce and people that have run large organizations. And I think that's the purpose of the cabinet and the purpose of his relationship with his boss. And if you don't think DOJ is also going to be looking at bad spending at the Department of Defense, you're not paying attention. But I think it's a valid point to be asking, are you ready to run this large organization? I'm more comfortable with Pete there because of who his boss is going to be and because of the people that will be around him, specifically DOJ.
Yeah, I think what you're asking is a very important question. You're basically saying, are you more comfortable with a CEO, businessman, entrepreneur, founder taking over the role of commander-in-chief of the military, or are you more comfortable with a former military, someone who's never run a company, ascending to a role where he's now the CEO of the military? I'm more comfortable with the first one because leadership is transferable. How often do you see a CEO of a certain company, Uber, then he becomes a CEO of Starbucks? He doesn't know anything about coffee. He was driving cars, but he understands leadership. Yeah. He understands basically how a company is run. He understands all the different elements of there. Well, what he's talking about with Pete Hegseth, and I actually think it's a fair question, and I'm quite biased. I'm rooting for Pete, like the guy, rooting for the guy.
Everybody should.
But he's never run a company. He's never been a CEO. He's never been the top of the food chain. When he says, yeah, I had the opportunity to work for somebody, my mind went to he worked for Roger Ailes. No, he's talking about Donald Trump. Yep. So does Pete Hegseth have the knowledge? Does he have the skill set? Does he have all the skills to pay the bills? Yes. But does he have the authority, the leadership? That's what's in question right now. So we're going to find out.
I want to put it in question, bro. 20 years, combat veteran, has medals to prove it. And my thing is this. With him and with Trump, I want both of these people to be America first. Pete Hegseth is America first. Donald Trump is America first. They're not DEI. They're not woke bullshit. They're not trans in the military. Listen, at the end of the day, guys, we want killers to be in the military. I'm sorry to be so freaking blunt, and we want killers. Everybody else, all these terrorists, all Hamas, all these China, they have killers. They have people that are ready to fight, and that's what we need. And Pete is a G. His predecessor, Lloyd Austin, did you guys know this? Kind of like a dereliction of duty. He had surgery. He had prostate cancer. I'm happy he's okay. He had prostate cancer, underwent surgery. So from December to like January, a couple of days, he didn't report it. He basically went MIA, Tom, which is, it's not illegal, but you're breaking protocol. You can't just disappear and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, by the way, I was having surgery. Okay, so if you want to talk about professionalism and being stepping up to the job, I think Pete has it. And it's not like he's just sitting in there by himself. He's going to be surrounded about other people that know the job. They're going to fill him in. I'm completely happy with him and that his boss being Trump. I'm
going to give you a little pushback.
Go ahead, push.
Because on the surface, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I want him to be America first. I want him to love America. I want them to have the skills to pay the bills. We're in a complete agreement there. But I think where PBD was asking, and I'll give a weird analogy, who's the guy that you just had the podcast 2 days ago? Basketball player.
Scottie Pippen.
Okay, cool. How many former great professional athletes, NBA players for this example, have gone on, I'm talking about the GOATs, have gone on to become awesome coaches in the NBA?
Not many.
Okay, or awesome GMs, or even owners. I mean, Michael Jordan, that's one of one. So I think what you're getting at is just because you're a good player, just because you can put the ball in the bucket, or in the military, just because you're good at it, doesn't make you the guy that can run a company. This is, I think, what you're asking. Yes or no?
For sure. Yeah. So to me, it's Tom, you were going to say something about this.
No, I like what
Vinny's commentary. What do you agree with Vinny?
I agree with Vinny's commentary up to a point. He is going to be surrounded by great people. He will be recognized by the five I can't even say the word. Army, Air Force,
all the
Marines,
departments
and Coast Guard,
yeah.
right? The five departments in the Department of Defense. I think he's going to be represented by the men and women serving there and highly respected because of his combat experience. But actually, that's what you want in the commander-in-chief. You want all of them to respect the commander-in-chief, to know that you're not going to be sent into foolish battle, and he's going to be strategic about the way he deploys you. But I agree with what you say up to a point, but I think it's very valid what they're bringing up. But I think if I was just looking back at the past Secretary of Defenses, you had people that lacked any military experience whatsoever. You had people that were bureaucrats and had never run large companies. And I think what we're seeing here is the bright lights of inspection that the Democrats are choosing to use for this confirmation season that have not been equally applied in other confirmation seasons.
And his job...
I want to ask PBD a question because you were in the military. You were in the Army. First, what was it? What was your division you were in?
101st Airborne.
Okay, so I don't think any of us have questioning Pete Hegseth's loyalty, love for America. I think if there is a question is, are you ready for this job? Right? What do you think, Pat? Is he ready for this responsibility? He's never been a CEO.
Yeah, so I'm doing exactly what Tom's doing. So, Rob, if you can go up and look at previous Secretary of Defense. Right now, it's a guy named Lloyd Austin.
Yeah.
Okay? He served.
Yeah, he was a 4-star general.
He was a 4-star general. So think about that. A 4-star general, right? So then you had David Norquist, okay, who himself was a 34th United States Deputy Secretary of Defense and then boom, National Defense. And then what was his background on what he did? Was he a 4-star general? Was he, what did he do before, previous to that? Department of Defense, acting Secretary of Defense. I don't know what his background is. If you want to look it up, Tom. David Norquist, okay. And then you have Chris Miller, right? And then you have Mark Esper, okay.
Mark Esper under Trump.
Right, under
you had
Trump.
General Mattis.
You have
Mad
General.
Dog.
Well, you go through this and you kind of
Donald
see a couple
Rumsfeld,
things.
Ruined America.
Yeah, exactly.
You see moral authority, and you see somebody who has had high level of managerial leadership opportunities and examples. By the way, nowadays to be a general is you're essentially a little bit more a politician than you were 50 years ago. It's not what a general used to be years ago. So I don't know. I think it is a valid question to be asking. On the executive side, I thought it was a very good question to ask. And you know what's the great thing about that? he gets to go prove himself to the market.
Good.
And say, I'm actually going to be a good executive. Great. Let's see what he does. But the reality of it is, if there's anything he's going to be reading up on right now, it's not going to be history of the military. It's going to be more about leadership and executive. Like, he needs to go read 5 Temptations of an Executive by Patrick Lencioni. He needs to go read a lot of Drucker. He needs to go read a lot of
Lincoln on Leadership.
He needs to go read a lot of books on managerial. By the way, this one's very interesting. Rob, if you want to play this one here, it's a fairly easy, it's fairly short, to the point, and you'll see where he's going with this. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay.
Objection, it will be entered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete, I'm actually going to ask you questions because I want to hear your answer.
Hey-o.
How many genders are there? Tough one.
Boom.
Senator, there are 2 genders.
I know that well. I'm a she-he, so I'm on board.
I'm a she.
His last name is She.
What is the diameter of the rifle round fired out of an M4 A1 rifle?
5.56.
That's a 5.56.
Yeah.
How many push-ups can you do?
47.
I did 5 sets of 47 this morning.
What do you think are most important strategic bases in the Pacific?
In the Pacific, Guam is pretty strategically significant.
Boom.
How many rounds of 5.56 can you fit into the magazine of an M4 rifle?
30.
Depends on the magazine, but standard issue is 30.
Let's go, Pat.
Come on, everyone knows that.
I could be the second.
And what
death.
size round does the M9 Beretta standard issue sidearm for the military fire?
9
A 9 millimeter, Senator.
Yeah. Who was buried in Grant's tomb?
What kind of batteries do you put in your night vision goggle?
Lithium.
Duracell.
So right there, you're representing qualifications.
That's great.
Okay, so
Vinny, by the way, shout out to you. You knew all the answers. I don't know if you cheated or
no, I didn't cheat. But
this is the stuff you learned in the military. What is it?
Bro, he's the Airman of the Year.
Yeah,
this is a guy that's
I can shoot
taken
guns.
to anywhere to shoot.
I can shoot.
Okay.
Have you ever seen him shoot?
Aha! Very good shot. Oh, I mean, we're good.
No. I'm not good. Don't say I'm good.
I'm a trained.
I know what I'm doing.
This guy forgets his gun in half the meetings. I go, Vinny, your guy.
What are you talking about? I'm a killer. Anyway, but at the end of the day, the Secretary of Defense, what's his job? What's his job? He advises the president on military policy, oversees the entire armed forces, that Tom said, and ensures civilian control of the military and manages defense. If you think about it, veteran experience, leadership. Okay, he was an officer, the veteran foreign wars leader. He understands operations. He knows what he's saying. And here's my question. The Department of Defense, are you guys happy with the state of the Department of Defense right now, the way that it is right now? Okay, 0. This is going to be a breath of fresh air, and I can't wait to see it. And by the way, Pat, this is a job you can get fired. Donald Trump could easily, if you're not doing well, you're out.
Guess what? It's one of the questions on VTnews.ai.
Oh, is it? Oh.
If the people that get the executive jobs, how many of them will not have their job by the end of the 100 days?
Oh, he loves firing.
0, 1, or 2, 3 to 4. You have to go there and.
Before we move on, do you
thousands
have
have already participated, guys. Go to VTnews.ai. You'll see the first 100 days. Go participate. If you think you're good at making predictions, go start with these first 14 predictions on VTnews.ai. Go ahead.
By the way, before we move on, do you have the clip from the senator from Oklahoma, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, where he's talking about the drinking? Because they were pressing him on drinking. This was a big deal.
And Tim
Do you have
Kaine.
this?
Tim Kaine. No lips.
Okay, so if you find that, I'll say this. He goes, so you drink alcohol, right? He's like, yeah, I've had a drink or two. Have you ever showed up to work drunk? He's like, what are you doing right now? Like, I've had a drink or two. Here it is. Watch this.
What is it?
The hypocrisy is hilarious.
Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it.
Is this the alcohol part?
If
Rob?
you have served in the U.S. Army Forces,
basically
and
said
been in the service for, I guess, what's your job?
Okay, back up
How
5
many
seconds.
The senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job?
Here it is.
How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night?
Tim Kaine.
By the way, the room starts
Have any
laughing.
of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce for cheating on their wives?
Ooh.
Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it's
Give me
so
a joke.
ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake.
Wow.
Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
Wow.
Senator Mark Wayne
you,
Mullen,
buddy.
by the way, shout out to you, calling out the hypocrisy from Congress, grilling him on his personal life.
Yep. And shout out to Tim
Not
Kaine.
how qualified he is.
Tim Kaine's hair.
Not-
Did you see Tim Kaine's hair?
It's falling apart. Not on how qualified he is. Not does he deserve the job. What does your personal life look like? And he asked him, how many of you mother suckers have shown up drunk to work?
Yeah.
Because if that's the answer, you would all lose a job.
I just want you
This
to. I
is-
just
this
want
is
you
him
to look
asking.
at Tim Kaine is the who was
He ran with Hillary. We all know.
I know, but who was what's her name's vice president? Tim Walz. That's the Tim Walz back in the day. By the way, he combs his hair with the same balloon that Bernie Sanders combs his hair with. That's the same balloon.
You're
they
making
comb
the
their hairs
same
with balloons.
mistake that he made.
What?
Is that you're going personal attacks.
I'm not personal. It's a balloon
than
haircut.
looking at the job.
Go ahead,
The
Tom.
point is, this guy Mark Wayne Mullen made a great point.
He did.
That if you guys are all judged on drinking, you'd all
Adam,
be
give me a
fired.
joke. Give me a joke.
You know what, Vinny? You give me a joke. You're supposed to be the comedian.
This has been said a couple times, and I
He
think
sounds Middle Eastern when he said,
Give me a joke.
Go ahead,
What
Tom.
is this, my friend? Give me a joke.
they are much more careful than ever, and all of these folks know that they're on TV. They're being covered on all the major networks. But previously, when it was just CNET and not all committees were there were multiple times where people would say, "You're badgering the witness about something that if we were all tested, we don't have enough people to come in here and have a committee."
Yeah, that's true.
And they're saying the same thing, right?
Yeah, good for him for doing
I
that.
agree.
actually
Shout
like-
out to Mark Wayne Mullen.
Yeah.